EU Chief for the Economy Valdis Dombrovskis says the bloc has learnt its lesson from the past and will not go back to Russian oil and gas.
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that the U.S. will send an additional 5,000 troops to Poland.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has offered to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as Kyiv warned that Russia was preparing a new offensive.
European Commissioner for the Economy Valdis Dombrovskis tells Euronews that the bloc would not come back on its decision to move away from Russian oil and gas. Unlike the UK, who on Tuesday eased sanctions on imports of Russian jet fuel and diesel refined in third countries, Dombrovskis says the EU will stick to its strategic decision.
We already saw back in 2022 that Russia tried to use its fossil fuel supplies as a tool for blackmail and manipulation, and we paid a quite dear economic price for having this dependency from Russia, so therefore there's no point of going back to this.
EU lawmakers have pushed to formally ban all remaining Russian gas flows by 2027 and permanently phase out oil imports earlier than expected. The Commissioner says that the EU needs to continue increasing its sanctions on Russia.
Well, if anything, we need to strengthen sanctions against Russia, not ease, because actually Russia is a country benefiting from this conflict in the Middle East and those higher energy prices, getting substantial windfall profits. So we should not facilitate it further.
As Europe is plunged into its second biggest energy crisis in the past 5 years, Dombrovskis reassured that there was no risk of Europe's energy being brought to a halt.
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that the U.S. will send an additional 5,000 troops to Poland, a week after the Pentagon canceled a planned deployment of 4,000 troops. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the decision was based on the election of Karol Nawrocki as president, who he endorsed during elections last year. It was not clear whether the additional troops were part of the previous planned deployment or a different operation. The announcement raises more uncertainty as the White House has signaled in recent weeks that it intends to reduce the overall troop levels in Europe. Earlier this month, the U.S. also announced it would withdraw 5,000 troops from Germany after a row between Trump and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz over the war with Iran. NATO chief Mark Rutte welcomed Trump's decision on Friday to send additional troops to Poland ahead of a meeting of alliance foreign ministers in Sweden.
Amid warnings from Kyiv that Russia could be planning a fresh offensive through Belarus, the country's president Alexander Lukashenko has offered to meet his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky anywhere. According to the state-controlled media outlets, Lukashenko on Friday said he was ready to meet with Zelensky anywhere in Ukraine or in Belarus to discuss the problems of Belarusian-Ukrainian relations. His comments follow Zelensky's remarks that Kyiv is prepared to take, quote, preventive measures against Russia and the Belarusian leadership over potential military threats to northern Ukraine amid a Russia-Belarus nuclear exercise held this week. Lukashenko, however, denied any plans to involve his country in the war unless there was any aggression towards Belarus's own territory. Lukashenko had made similar denials prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. However, Moscow did end up using Belarusian territory for its forces to cross into Ukraine.
Republican lawmakers struggled on Thursday to find the votes needed to dismiss legislation that would compel U.S. President Donald Trump to end his war in Iran, delaying planned votes on the matter into June. Members of the U.S. House of Representatives were set to vote on Trump's use of the 1973 War Powers Resolution. The War Powers Resolution Act allows presidents to proceed with military action without requiring congressional approval for 60 days. After the 2-month period, the military campaign is then brought to Congress for an official vote. Democrats say the vote was pulled after Republicans in the chamber realized it was set to pass. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries called Republican lawmakers, quote, cowards for pulling the vote he says they knew they would lose. In a statement with other caucus leaders, he accused them of refusing to be held accountable to the American people. Republicans, however, refute that narrative, saying the vote was simply postponed to give lawmakers who were absent a chance to cast their say. Trump, speaking to reporters in the Oval Office on Thursday, appeared unfazed as he again reiterated threats to resume the war if Tehran fails to reach a deal with Washington.
A nuclear war in the Middle East.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has suggested Ukraine should become an associate member of the EU before becoming a fully fledged member state, a proposal aimed at breaking the two-year deadlock in the country's bid to join the bloc. In a letter to EU leaders, Merz said, quote, "It is now time to boldly move on with Ukraine's EU integration through innovative solutions." Merz noted it was obvious the EU will not be able to complete the accession process shortly, given the political complexities of ratification processes in various member states. The associate status, Merz argues in the document, would grant Ukraine access to the decision-making bodies, the European Council, the European Commission, and the European Parliament without voting rights or a dedicated portfolio. Crucially, it would enable Kyiv to request aid from other member states in the event of a new Russian attack. Merz first floated the idea during an informal summit of EU leaders in Cyprus last month, where Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky renewed his push for fast-tracked accession and rejected any proposal for symbolic membership. According to Merz, the proposal of associate membership, which has no precedent in history, is set to raise a couple of questions.
Two young French boys aged 4 and 5 were rescued in Portugal this week after they had been abandoned on the side of the road by their mother, with nothing but backpacks containing some food and water. They were found by a local passerby who took them to a bakery run by his family.
Meu filho é que os encontrou lá à estrada. Estavam sentados e quando viram o carro, que até é este, por acaso até está hoje na quis trabalhar, os miúdos viram o carro e dirigiram-se ao carro, a chorarem.
The family took the children in, providing shelter, food, and toys for them to play with. They had reportedly explained how their mother had left them in a wooded area.
Puseram-me na floresta, taparam os olhos e mandaram-me ir à procura de brinquedo. Quando eu vi, já não estava o carro da mamã, já tinha abalado.
Police later took the children to a nearby hospital in the city of Setúbal. They're currently in a foster family and in good health. Following a manhunt, their mother was found and arrested on Thursday on suspicion of abuse, endangerment, and abandonment. Their stepfather, known to French authorities and with a prior conviction for domestic violence, was also arrested. An investigation has also been opened in France, where the mother's disappearance was already under investigation.
Starting from the 1st of June, a ban on the nighttime sale of alcohol will be in effect throughout the Polish capital Warsaw. Between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., alcohol will no longer be permitted for sale in kiosks, stores, or gas stations. The restrictions, however, will not apply to restaurants and bars or the duty-free zone at Chopin Airport. We asked Warsaw residents how they view this decision and what will change once the restrictions are in place.
No zmieniłoby, bo większy byłby spokój.
Nieważne, która jest godzina. Po prostu. Będzie prohibicja i dla trzeźwych. Mi się to nie podoba taki pomysł. Ogólnie prohibicja, stanowczo nie.
Kiedyś alkohol sprzedawali od 13 do 22 i wszyscy byli szczęśliwi. Uważam, że jest to bardzo dobrym pomysłem.
Myślę, że będzie bezpiecznie. Akurat z moim mężem często jesteśmy w Szwecji, więc tam to się dobrze sprawdza i myślę, że to jest dobra godzina, żeby skończyć po prostu sprzedaż.
W wypadku prohibicji zawsze tworzy się jakiś czarny rynek. Prawda, babcia sprzedaje, prawda, z torby, prawda, czy przez okno i tak było, prawda, przez wieki. ale jestem bardzo za prohibicją, bo to na pewno picie ograniczy i na pewno będzie mniej incydentów, awantur.
We also asked whether drinking alcohol should be allowed on the boulevards along the Vistula River.
Spędziłam tam sama sporo czasu ze znajomymi, już może teraz nie tak dużo, ale myślę, że powinny być przestrzenie, gdzie też młodzi ludzie mogą sobie usiąść spokojnie.
To, że ja nie piję, to nie znaczy, że ktoś ma nie pić. Tylko mówię, wszystko się robi z umiarem i żeby to miało ręce i nogi. Butelki się wyrzuca do śmietnika, ewentualnie oddaje gdzieś do skupu, a nie tłucze na środku bulwaru, gdzie nie można ani później usiąść, ani stanąć.
The final assessment of the solution's effectiveness will depend on safety data, the number of police interventions, and residents' opinions after several months of the new regulations being in effect.
Large parts of Europe will see high temperatures over the weekend, as experts warn that intense heat in spring is becoming a new normal. In Paris, temperatures are expected to reach 31 degrees on Saturday, while the south of the UK will hit 32 degrees on Sunday. Southern Spain, meanwhile, will see temperatures climb to a scorching 38 degrees. Countries in the Mediterranean basin, like Italy, Greece, Spain and southern France, are the most affected by the phenomenon. Increasingly serious bouts of extreme heat are impacting nations whose housing stock, transport networks and hospitals were not designed for high temperatures. Researchers at Imperial College London looked at 854 European cities and found that climate change was responsible for 68% of the 24,400 estimated heat deaths last summer.